Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. This is the finale of our Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness, but it is not the end of the road. We have been doing a podcast now for a while and on Spotify at discovery664.com. And we want to make sure that the folks who have been following us for as long as you have here on Community News, we want you to know that we're still going to be around. We're going to be at our podcast location, and you can find us there where we can continue our discussions about how to make the world a better place through charitable giving, through philanthropy. This has been a very long and well-traveled road, this Route 664. Goes back to the late 90s when I was on Waxy doing the show Funny Money, and got acquainted with radio and doing interviews on radio, but mostly talking about the same thing, which is how to make your life better using charity, using charitable tools like the 664 trusts. And it's been very gratifying to have helped so many in the community and continuing to help the community become more charitable, build philanthropy in the most sound and fiscally responsible way while reducing taxes and increasing income. It's all a very good bargain that the Congress gave us all those years ago in 1969. But people have not been using it enough, and that's what our objective was. Our objective was to educate the public about how these devices work and why you should be using them when they're appropriate, because they're so powerful. But the transitions happen over time, and we were on the radio with Waxy, and then we went to the Biz. We were on WKAT for a while. We've been around. And lately, of course, we've been here at Community News for the last 4 years, almost 5 years. And this has been a real pleasure working at Community Newspapers. The studio here is a wonderful studio. It's a great place to learn the television business and learn how to podcast and how to speak for the public. And I've appreciated all of the work and great work that they've been doing. And we're not going to be broadcasting on community newspapers, but we, again, as we say, we'll be available on the podcast medium. My listeners, you guys out there that have been watching me do this and who have been responding and who've been communicating with me on a regular basis, you're not gonna be able to eliminate me from your contacts. If you want to reach me, you can still reach me at the same number, 305-895-1201. That's the number that's been in existence for a long time with regard to this information. You can reach me there anytime, and I'm happy to mentor you if you are planning to become part of this philanthropic world that we're in. If you want to become more knowledgeable about it, of course, the academy that we started, Discovery 664 Academy, is a place to go. We want you to become ambassadors of this goodwill, become ambassadors of the charitable world, help yourself, your family, and people that you love also take part so everybody can benefit. Ultimately, the communities benefit because that's the objective. We created the Advisors in Philanthropy Foundation in 2008. That foundation morphed into the Endow America Network Foundation. And that's what our purpose is to endow America. We want to create enough endowment in the country so that nonprofit organizations can be fully supported without government support and without having to worry about fundraising all the time, because it takes away from the purpose of that organization. It's a very logical, reasonable, common sense way of looking at things. It also will help on a national level, because if the government is not giving $1 trillion a year to non-governmental organizations, that will be a savings in the overall budget. And the growth of the charitable resources in communities can make it easier for everything to operate and ultimately reduce the government's debt. We think that social charity, the name that we've given to this process, the process of changing tax dollars into spendable dollars, creating income from charitable giving, is a great concept that will run alongside Social Security and then maybe eventually replace Social Security, because it is that powerful a tool. It is a way for you to build your own wealth, build your own endowment, your own resource that you will use for income, just as we do with Social Security. There's enough problems with Social Security to worry everybody. It was created a long time ago in 1934. It's a very limited program, Social Security, in the sense that there's a strict guidelines that have to be followed, and it is limited in scope. And Social Charity, on the other hand, its alternative, is not. It is something that can be used and grown to whatever extent you want to grow it, to create as much of an endowment as you want to create, and doing it on a favorably tax basis. And that's the theme overall. We wanted to educate the public. We want to educate advisors. We want to educate people to the point where they know that 664 is as good a device as a 401k or a 1031 exchange or a 529. There are benefits that the government gave you in the tax code. You have to know how to use them, and you have to know when to use them. They're very, very powerful tools. So when you're dealing with this kind of financial planning, it's very important that you use your advisors properly, that you consult with them, make sure that what you're doing fits into your situation. There are folks who are schooled in this, the Chartered Advisors in Philanthropy out of the American College. That's where I got my degree as a CAP, Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy. I got that back in 2005. I was one of the first to get it in the country. That designation is one that you should look for when you're doing this kind of planning, because they are educated in these areas that are so nuanced that they need to be done properly. I know a lot of people who have received much correspondence from folks who have done charitable remainder trusts, but they are limited. Most of them have been charitable remainder annuity trusts, and in a lot of cases, the individuals weren't the trustees. The nonprofits became trustees. So the question that always arises is, how can I do this and still maintain and know that I'm going to get the best plan for the situation? And that's done through advisors. The Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy is a designation that indicates that they know how to do this kind of work. We've expanded that now to include a more holistic approach, in that we are really in engineering endowments. That what the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy does is understands the nuances of the particular sections of the tax code, but the endowment engineer works on it on a very much broader basis, dealing with the entire process. And it's one of the advantages that you get when you're working with a planner that is dealing with your entire person. And I've had conversations with a lot of you who've called and wanted to know what does that actually mean when you're saying dealing with the entire person. Well, you can't ask. We work a lot with non-cash assets. Those are particularly attractive. Non-cash assets that have capital appreciation, where when you want to change that asset from what it is today to something different in the future, another type of investment, you go through a tax window. And that is the reason why non-cash assets are very attractive as gifts to these trusts. When you gift a non-cash asset to a trust and you are able to get a tax-free sale at that time, and you also get a tax deduction, and then you get the full income from the device, that's why the non-cash assets have become so attractive. So when you're in a position where you have non-cash assets, non-cash appreciated assets, that is a time when you start to look for a 664 trust, where you're going to look for that kind of a social security transaction. When that occurs, the person that you're working with needs to know, or the person that is directing the transaction needs to know about you to the point where they can say, look, you can afford to give that asset and the principal to charity. The income that you're going to get from it is one thing, but you can't necessarily give away all principal or access to liquidity or cash, use of cash. So knowing about the entire person is extremely important, and that's the holistic approach. We need to know about the entire financial position of the individual. We need to know about the family situation. We need to know whether there are heirs that are going to be excluded from that because they won't receive the asset if it's passing through a charitable account. So it's very important to know that all of the information is being taken into account, and that's a very systematic approach that endowment engineers take to the process. So being a chartered advisor in philanthropy, I learned a long time ago that it's not just about the gift itself, it's about everything else around it. And also it's developing in the individual a focus on what it is that they want to accomplish. What do they want to do with that wonderful gift that they're going to make? Who is it going to go to eventually? What is it going to support? And that's the big difference between Social Security and Social Security. With Social Security, the government is not going to ask you, who would you like to leave all that money to after you pass? They just take it from you and they do what they want with it. But with Social Security, with these trusts, you can direct where that's going to go after you pass. And you can also leave that legacy to your children and your grandchildren for them to direct the asset into the community to help the community overall. You know, my philosophy has always been that every community should have its own hospital or hospitals that are that don't charge. I remember traveling in Europe, and I got a really bad eye infection, and it was in Austria actually, and I went to the local clinic there, and I was treated, and there was no charge. They took care of everything that was going on, and I was pleasantly surprised that there's no charge for it. And the reason for that is that they have a system where they have free medical care. And there's no reason why we can't have that in this country. The problem is, how do you establish the free medical care? Now, in smaller countries where the tax base and the cost of those services can be balanced because it's a small enough arena, it works. But in the United States, where we've got over 300 million people, it's not so easy for our government, our federal government, to do that. And that's why you're seeing problems today with supporting a lot of the medical issues that the government's also involved in, and that's part of our deficit. So what we want to do is we want to create the hypothesis is that if you create enough charitable wealth in a community, that charitable wealth can endow hospitals, daycare centers, adult care centers, schools, and other public services that are vital to the community, and do it through the charitable sector, the nonprofit sector, so that there's a service, a community benefit that comes from your charitable giving. So taking that all into account now, if you have Social Security, you're not going to be able to pass anything to the community. You're going to give it to the government. They're going to decide. But with Social Security, you can decide where it's going to go. So if you have non-cash assets that have appreciated and you want to change from those non-cash assets to something else because They're maybe not producing enough income. You may think that the risk has become too great. Maybe the cost of maintaining them is too great. It happens a lot with real estate. Folks build real estate. They invest in the real estate, which is a good investment device. But after a while, after depreciation is gone, after the property has appreciated to a greater degree than the rents are providing income, where there's an imbalance, a lot of people want to get out of the real estate business, and they want to do it and preserve as much of the capital as they can to produce other income. And that's why real estate is a very attractive gift to a charitable device. And as a non-cash asset that's appreciated, and you want to avoid the capital gains tax, and you want to get a tax deduction, and you want to get the income. That's what Congress did in 1969. So think about that. Think about how good that plan was, how good that device structure is. The bargain is you do something for charity when you pass, and you'll have lower taxes while you're alive. You'll have more income while you're alive, and you benefit the community, and you actually benefit the government. They did that because they knew, they were very smart back in 1969. They could see the future, and they knew that what they were doing was not going to be sustainable without creating a very large charitable sector. Unfortunately, the way it is today, instead of the charitable sector being supported by the public, the charitable sector is being supported by the government, which is crazy. Government should not be taking our tax dollars and turning them into charitable dollars. We should be doing that on our own. And when we do that on our own, it's much more effective. The dollar goes straight to where you want it to go to. It doesn't go through the government for dry cleaning and burning and everything else, and then go to the pittance going back to the community. If you figure out, if you send $1 in taxes to Washington, D.C., how much do you think comes back to your community out of that dollar? It's a very small amount, and certainly not as effective as if you took that dollar and put it right into your own community. So this is a very common sense, brilliant plan that they came up with. Unfortunately, they never really communicated it properly, or it was communicated in a subtle way to the very wealthy in the country, the very wealthy, the philanthropists that you know of today, the very wealthy philanthropists have been using this for the longest time. And now with technology is what it is, we're able to allow everybody to use this process, because the administration and the trusteeships and all of the things that go into drawing these documents and setting up the trusts, it's much easier today with the technology. The only thing is how much you know about what we're doing, what can be done. So I invite you again. You can reach me, even though this is our last show here on community newspapers, and we're not broadcasting through community newspapers, but we will be broadcasting on our podcasts. You can still get the same information. You can get actually more information now because of the academy that we created, and you have an opportunity to always reach out to me. And again, I'll give you that phone number. It's 305-895-1201, 305-895-1201. And you can call me again with your questions, as you've done in the past online. I want to say thank you to you for being an audience for this program, and for your attention to what we're doing, and appreciate very much the feedback that I always get. It's been a real treat to be here at community newspapers and doing this show, and I want to thank everybody here at community newspapers, because they've been super good to all of our personnel and people that we bring in as as our interviews and so on. It's just been a real ball, a real blast, and we're going to miss it. I've been doing this now for a long enough time where my car comes here automatically on Thursdays. So we're at a crossroads in the world today. The world is moving from a political world to an economic world. You're seeing that in absolute, the most grandest way you've ever seen it with what's going on today in how we are dealing with the economies of the world. And when you're moving into an economic world from a political world, it's most important that you as an individual participate in the way that's most appropriate for you and the way that's most successful for you. And this process, this social charity process, this use of the 664 and the other devices, the pooled income funds and the charitable gift annuities, charitable remainder trusts, even charitable lead trusts, and donor advised funds, all these things, all these tools that have become more mainstream now, you need to know what they are and learn how to use them properly. One of the ways you can do that is going to our academy at Discovery 664 Academy, and you'll see course material there on how to utilize these tools, what you need to do with regard to for your own financial planning, what makes for sound financial planning for the future, and bring yourself into the economic world. The economic world is going to be universal. Hopefully, in an economic world, we won't see wars. We won't see the things that go about when there's politics involved. We've evolved over time. We started out as tribal, and we went to becoming religious, and then we went to political. There were events that occurred that made that happen. Major events occurred within the political world to change it to an economic world, and one of those was the microchip. Another was taking the dollar off the gold standard. Those things created an economic world rather than who owned the most gold, who had the most property, who had the most people under their control. So the world has changed. And of course, the ability to communicate and the ability to get information has changed drastically. And so it's a very natural thing for us to evolve, for me to evolve to the podcast world from this broadcast world. And I look forward to seeing you on the podcast. And I hope that you'll continue to follow what we're doing and support your local charities by helping yourself as well. It's a very important element. Nonprofit organizations have benefits that are available to the public that go beyond a tax deduction and go beyond the good feelings that you get from making a gift. I'm not saying that those are not perfectly sound reasons. Nobody should stop their tithing or stop their gifting to their favorite charities, send a check and put money in a kettle, whatever it is that you want to do to help on a charitable basis is great. But there's a transition going on, and I think it's very important for nonprofit organizations to communicate to their donors that they have the power to help them do things that are beneficial to the donor as well. And that is in the form of the tax deduction, of course, is valuable, but also if you can get income from your gift and you can get the income from the entire gift without it being taxed, that is a very significant benefit that charity offers. And charities need to develop that on a more consistent basis in their message, that you can help us and we can help you, or we can help you and you can help us. It's all the same thing. We all want to be able to benefit from what we're doing in a way that makes sense. I'm not an advocate of no tax, but I am an advocate of less tax. Less tax and more income. That's the benefit that you get from social charity, and that's the benefit that you get from Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. So again, this is our final show, and we invite you to move to our podcast. on Spotify at discovery664.com. You'll be able to follow what we're doing there, and you'll also be able to enroll in the Discovery 664 Academy to learn how to become a Goodwill ambassador and how to also become an endowment engineer if you want to take that on as a profession. The more endowment engineers that we have, the better the world will be, and the more sound the communities will be, and people will get better services, and people will have a much better financial outlook on everything, because it is so powerful when it's done properly. And that's what we invite you to do. So we'll look forward to seeing you and hearing from you. Again, if you want to reach me anytime, just as you have in the past, at 305-895-1201. Happy to talk to you about any questions that you have with regard to this type of work. Or if you need mentoring and you're an advisor and you want to know how to proceed with some non-cash asset gifts, well, I'm happy to help you. And remember that if you have that situation, you have a non-cash asset that's appreciated, you want to transition that to something else, you don't want to pay tax, and you'd like to get a tax deduction, and you want to get all of the income, this is a time when you need to seek out a chartered advisor in philanthropy or an endowment engineer, someone who can help you do that type of planning with your help of your advisors. Everybody needs to know what you're doing, and everybody needs to be on the same page. But most importantly, you need to be aware of what you're doing as well. That's a very important aspect of everything that we're doing, is that your knowledge and your understanding of what it is vitally important. We don't want you to do something that you're not familiar with. We don't want you to be uncomfortable with it. It's not the way it works. It works best when you understand everything that's going on. It may take a while, but that's what we're there for. So again, thank you for listening, and thank you for watching, and thank you for being a great audience, and thank you again, community newspapers and all the staff here at community newspapers, for all the great work that you've done for the time that we've been here, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the podcast. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.